This is the third and last lecture over muscles. In this lecture, we're going to look at the role of ATP in muscle contraction and also the disorder muscular dystrophy. There are three reasons ATP is needed for muscle contraction. The first is the reuptake of calcium into the sarcoplasmic reticulum is an energy requiring process. It's necessary to power the movement of the myosin heads, and it's necessary to break the cross bridges that bind with actin so rigor mortis does not occur. What is ATPase? It's an enzyme found in the myosin heads that splits the ATP molecule. Anytime you see the ending ASE, it tells you that that substance is an enzyme. There are several different sources of this ATP that we use in muscle contraction. The first is stored ATP. We have about 4 to 6 seconds of ATP stored in our skeletal muscles. If muscle contraction continues, we have to find another supply of ATP. A second source is creatine phosphate. Creatine phosphate is a high-energy molecule stored in muscle cells, and it lasts about 10 to 15 seconds. So if contraction continues, we're going to need to get ATP from either aerobic or anaerobic respiration. Aerobic respiration occurs in the mitochondria. It's slow, but it provides a lot of energy. Anaerobic respiration provides a little energy, but it does not require oxygen. The inability of a muscle to contract is called muscle fatigue. It results from a relative deficit of ATP. Contractures are continuous contraction due to the total absence of ATP. If you look in the picture below, you can see how those fingers are severely contracted. An example is writer's cramp. It's a temporary contracture, but something with which you may be familiar. Muscle fatigue most often occurs for one of three reasons. ATP is used faster than it's produced, lactic acid accumulates and lactic acid is a waste product, or ionic imbalances of sodium and potassium occur. There are actually three different types of muscle fibers. They are the red or slow twitch, the white or fast twitch, and the pink, which are intermediate fast twitch. Here is a comparison of red and white fibers. Please be sure to go through this list and make sure you know the differences between red and white fibers. Red and white fibers are genetically determined. This means that athletic training cannot change one type to the other. We're going to look now at a disease of the muscular system known as Duchenne muscular dystrophy. It was named for the man who discovered the disorder. This slide shows you the inheritance pattern of Duchenne muscular dystrophy. Duchenne muscular dystrophy is an X-linked recessive trait. That means that you need a father who's unaffected but carries the gene and a mother who is a carrier. The chances of them having a child with Duchenne muscular dystrophy is 1 in 4. The chance of them having a son with Duchenne muscular dystrophy is 1 in 2. I mentioned already that Duchenne muscular dystrophy is a sex-linked recessive trait. It's carried on the X chromosome and occurs primarily in males, and this is typical of sex-linked recessive traits. It's usually diagnosed at about 2 to 3 years of age, and rarely do they live beyond adolescence. Duchenne muscular dystrophy is first apparent between the ages of 2 and 3. Symptoms include general muscle weakness and atrophy. They fall down more frequently than other children, and it affects the pelvis, the upper arms, and the upper legs first. These individuals develop a swayback, also known as lordosis, and you can see that in the picture to the right. The muscle in the calf of the leg is replaced by fat, and the calf looks larger. In addition, they have difficulty rising from a sitting position. The picture on the right shows you lordosis. The picture on the left shows you the progression of lordosis. Remember, lordosis is a swayback. These children look very muscular. If you look at the calves of their legs, they look like they're very well developed muscles. Upon examination, you find that the muscle has been replaced by fat. Children with muscular dystrophy have difficulty rising from a sitting position on the ground. You can see on both the left and the right, the way that they get up from sitting on the ground is uncharacteristic. The problem is they have muscle weakness and cannot get up in the normal fashion. If this animation is in slide position, you should be able to wait a few seconds and see this young man arising after lying on the floor. It's very typical. I've also placed a video showing this same trait known as Gower's sign in week 5 material if you cannot start the animation. I just mentioned the name of this trait is Gower's sign. Another thing you'll see in these young men is difficulty with resistance in the shoulder girdle. Because they have less muscle mass, when you try and pick them up under the arms, they don't have the resistance to push down. Here are other signs and symptoms of Duchenne muscular dystrophy. It's a disease that progresses slowly. It eventually involves all the voluntary muscles of the body. Usually they're wheelchair bound by 10, and survival is rare beyond 20. Most often, death is caused by heart failure or respiratory failure. Remember that the calf muscles appear well developed, but the muscle has been replaced by fat. Other muscles are also wasted. This is known as atrophy. These children fall frequently, they walk later, and when they walk in a waddling manner. They're uncoordinated, and they have what's known as a scissors gait. This is the scissors gait. If you're having trouble viewing this, I've posted a copy in week 5. Here are 2 families that have been affected by Duchenne muscular dystrophy. In most cases, death is due either to cardiac problems or asphyxiation.